Alright guys, we are covering Void Rivals issue 9, and if you are wondering where are the other 8 parts on the channel, I'm still working on the huge compilation of volume 1 and the other issues, so don't worry, I'm not going to leave you guys hanging on those, but we pick up after Proximus was hunting down Darak and Sollia. If you don't know who Proximus is, it's basically Aratonia's #1 mercenary, who's also kind of like a cyborg. It's really cool. But after getting into a fight and a storm came in, Sollia was stabbed by her own staff, and we see her retract her staff down so it will leave her body because she's literally hanging on it, but as she is wounded heavily from her staff, her and Darak are trying to keep moving through the Wasteland, which is this very dangerous place on the Sacred Ring that basically bridges Zeratoria and Agoria. I am probably going to butcher these names. Like, I don't know. I'm still trying to get used to the names, but anyways. And most people that travel through the Wasteland don't make it because of the severe weather conditions and just what's out there, but we see them traveling through the Wasteland, but we cut to Skoy, who's going to his home, and this part, I don't know, it's funny. It's really messed up with me to find funny, like, but throughout like Void Rivals, you'll see like cameos and just cutaways of like Skoy doing stuff, and here we see Skoy like, you know, get off a ship, like, oh man, what a day, what a trip, and then he walks into his house and he's like, honey, kids, I'm home, and no one's there, it's completely empty, and he's like, oh yeah, that's right. I don't know, I know it's messed up to laugh, but I did laugh because I don't know, but poor Skoy, man, I'm a terrible person. It really did just catch me off guard. Anyways, we cut back to Darak and Sollia moving through, and Sollia is not doing too well as she collapses and passes out, and so Darak carries her, and Darak is also not doing too well, like mentally. He's kind of losing his mind because he just starts laughing, says, oh wait, this is how things get worse, because earlier he's like, how could things get worse, and he's just kind of like laughing to himself, and Android's like saying, dude, are you okay? Neither Darak and Sollia are doing too well, and you just got poor Android who's just like, what is going on? But as Darak keeps moving forward, he sees an Edgewalker exosuit, which means they are getting closer to where Darak was in the flashback of his, where he was also in the Wasteland and got blown away, and you know, his exosuit went flying and he ended up crawling to the shed. Android mentions if Darak has seen this place before, and he says kinda, as we see like a flashback panel of him like limping to the shed looking area. But as they go to the shed looking area, we see a familiar looking car in the background. But as Android asks Darak if he's been here, again he mentions that he was here before using an exosuit before a storm came in and pushed him away, and he got severely injured and ended up crawling to the shed. And while he was laying on the floor, he caught a glimpse of something, but next thing he saw, he was back in Agoria. And he's telling Android this, and Android scans Solia's vitals, which aren't looking too good, and we see something transforming in the background, which then Handjoy says, was the thing you saw here a large robotic being capable of shifting between different forms, just like the one we saw on a desolate planet where the first encountered Sollia? And Darak says, I love how you're developing a sense of humor, Android. I just love that, like, yeah, nah, there's a transformer right in front of you, and boom, it's Springer. We see Springer. We knew Springer was coming. We've seen the alternate covers, the main cover. We've seen Springer's been long overdue. We knew he was coming. It wasn't really a well-kept secret, but this makes the 4th Transformers cameo in Void Rivals, I believe, first being Jetfire in issue 1, and I want to say Shockwave was like issue 3 or 4, and then Hot Rod in the Energon Universe Special, and now Springer. And Springer responds to Darak saying he isn't surprised to see him for the first time, like most beings are, and asks Sollia if she is dead, and Darak responds with, she soon could be, and Springer offers help, but then is confused as he thought Darak and Sollia were mechanical because of the way they look and just how they're covered from head to toe. But since they're not mechanical, he doesn't really know if he can help them at all. But Darak mentions that all he really needs is some like tools and a sterile environment, and Handjoy can perform surgery on Sollia and save her. And as Springer's explaining there isn't a lot of supplies here, they get interrupted by Proximus as a huge shockwave hits the ground. Springer is confused, asking what was that, and Darak explains how that guy is trying to kill him and Sollia. And Springer is confused as to why, but also comments on how Proximus is small just like Darak and Sollia. And this is where things get dope, as Proximus and Springer start to duke it out. We see Proximus fire an arrow at Springer, asking Springer if he isn't deserving of his full attention, and Springer comments saying that was really unwise, and he pulls out his sword and says, I'd like to see you try that again. And as Proximus says, your size does not intimidate me, Springer responds with, funny, same. And now you have the deadliest assassin of Zeratonia against the Autobot Triple Changer, and this fight is very interesting, as Springer doesn't necessarily take this fight serious at first, but since there is a huge size difference, Proximus is easily able to dodge and fire off shots on Springer, but Springer does end landing a blow on Proximus until he blocks it And Springer asks Proximus, how are you able to block an attack like that head on from his sword? But with no answer, Proximus gets up, climbs onto the sword, and shoots Springer until Springer grabs him. And this fight, it's not really a constant back and forth, but it's also like they're on equal power. It's more like, imagine you are playing a video game and you are fighting a super high level boss in a video game, but you have the stats and gear to keep up with the boss, but that's only because you have like a glass cannon type build. So like what's really like happening here is Proximus is able to do so much damage because of the size difference, but also too, Proximus is very capable. I mean, he's literally a cyborg assassin and he's very capable, but the size difference is a huge factor. He's able to move around and fire off shots from his bow, and because Springer's so big, it's kind of hard for Springer to land a hit on Proximus. So Proximus just kind of like flying over, just like shooting, but Springer's also not really like going down because like he's a Cybertronian, and it's gonna take a lot of shots from his bow to really take Springer down from Proximus. But it's really cool, like it doesn't really matter size and scale. I mean, we've seen this in multiple times with Transformers media. It doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are. If you are capable of taking down a Transformer, you can do it. It's just, you gotta be on your A game. like you really gotta make sure you're doing everything that you can, and that's what Proximus is doing. And so as these two are duking it out, Darak wakes back up from getting passed out from the shockwave from Proximus's arrow, and has the android scan Solia's vitals, and her vitals are dropping significantly, and as Darak starts to freak out, he reaches in Solia's pocket and picks up this green glowing key that Solia got from the witches back a couple of issues, and Darak picks it up and asks what it is. But before we see that, we cut to the Quintessons and Quintessa, and they have been summoned, and the judge Quintesson basically says, oh, you better have summoned me for a good reason or else I'm gonna kill you. Rah, I'm a bad guy. But we see one of the scientists Quintesson mention how the ship Darak and Solila built back on the planet they crashed on in issue 1 is a rare alloy that contains traces of formula that dates back to ancient Cybertron, and this Zeratonia that Skoy mentioned could be connected to Zertatrion, which leads to the scientist being killed for speaking that word right on the spot, and the judge says speaking that name has long been forbidden, which is how this issue ends. And I looked up who or what Zertatrion is. I couldn't find anything, so I'm in the dark just as much as you guys are. But once again, we are left on a cliffhanger for Void Rivals. They really do just love leaving us on like just these crazy cliffhangers, man. But with that being said, this was Void Rivals issue 9. I would love to know your guys' thoughts on this issue, and if you know, come up with any theories on who Zertatrion is down in the comments below. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Springer and how he's being portrayed in these comics, and I will see you guys in the next one later.